I am going to let a coin flip determine my entire March Madness bracket for this season. The rules are pretty simple. Heads, the higher seed moves on. Tails, the lower seed moves on. So let's start out in the West, Gonzaga against Georgia State. And the coin determines that Gonzaga will win. Probably a pretty safe bet. Next game, Boise State and Memphis. The 8 seed versus the 9 seed is saying Memphis will win. Next you got UConn and New Mexico State. That is going to go to UConn. Arkansas and Vermont. That is going to go to Vermont. So we have our first upset. Well, I guess not our first upset. Memphis is a 9 seed, Boise is an 8 seed. Then you got Alabama and Notre Dame, 6 seed versus 11 seed. That is going to go to Alabama. Texas Tech and Montana State. That one is going to go to Texas Tech. Michigan State and Davidson. That one goes to Michigan State. Duke and CSU Fullerton. That one's going to Duke. So now we will move over here to the south side. We got Arizona against Wright State. And we have a 16 seed beating a 1 seed. I think that would only be the second time in NCAA history. Then Seton Hall against TCU. And Seton Hall is going to be moving on. Houston against UAB. That one is going to go to Houston. Illinois and Chattanooga of Tennessee, I believe. That one's going to go to Chattanooga. Colorado State and Michigan. That one goes to Michigan. Tennessee and Longwood. I have no idea who Longwood is. One of my favorite parts about looking at the March Madness bracket every year is I don't recognize some of these teams. Also, I should probably have prefaced this by saying I watch very little to no college basketball throughout the entire year, but managed to fill out a bracket every year for some reason. Then you got Ohio State and Loyola Chicago. That's going to Ohio State. Then Villanova and Delaware. That one is going to go to Delaware. Now moving down to the East bracket, we have Baylor against Norfolk State. Is another number 1 seed going to fall? Yes, they are. North Carolina and Marquette. 8 seed versus the 9 seed. This one's going to go to Marquette. St. Mary's against Indiana. 5 seed against a 12 seed. And this one's going to go to St. Mary's. UCLA and Akron. This one goes to Akron. Texas and Virginia Tech. I'm not even going to lie. I'm rooting for Texas to lose in this. And Texas will move on. Purdue against Yale. That one goes to Yale. Murray State against San Francisco. It goes to Murray State. Kentucky against St. Peter's. That one's going to go to Kentucky. Now moving over to the Midwest bracket, we have Kansas against Texas Southern. And is another number 1 seed going to fall? No, Kansas moves on. San Diego State, and I believe that's pronounced Creighton. I could be completely wrong though. Doesn't matter, they're losing to San Diego State. Iowa against Richmond. That one's going to Richmond. Providence against South Dakota State. That one is going to Providence. LSU versus Iowa State. There's a lot of Big 12 teams in this. That is going to Iowa State. Wisconsin against Colgate. That's going to Wisconsin. USC and Miami. 2 formerly relevant football programs. And Miami's going to take that one. Auburn against, I assume that's Jacksonville State here to end the Midwest bracket. And that's going to go to Jacksonville State. Now that we have completed the entire first round of the bracket, let's go ahead and move on to the second round of the West bracket. First, we have Gonzaga against Memphis. A 1 seed against a 9 seed. And Memphis upsets Gonzaga. Next is UConn and Vermont. Can Vermont continue their Cinderella story here? They will not. UConn takes them down. Next is Alabama against Texas Tech. And this one will go to Alabama. They are the lower seed here. Now Michigan State against Duke. This goes to Duke. Now moving over to the South bracket, we have Wright State against Seton Hall. Can Wright State continue their Cinderella story? They will not. Seton Hall gets that one. Houston against Chattanooga. A 5 seed versus a 13 seed, and it goes to Chattanooga. Then Michigan against Longwood, an 11 seed against a 14 seed, and that one will go to Longwood, they're the lower seed. Ohio State and Delaware. This one will go to Ohio State. Now moving down to the East bracket, Norfolk State against Marquette. Can Norfolk State continue their Cinderella story? They will not. Don't know what I said there. I feel like I messed up the word not. If I did, I apologize. But the next game is St. Mary's against Akron, a 5 seed against a 13 seed, and this one goes to the 5 seed. Next game, you got Texas and Yale, a 6 seed against a 14 seed, and this one will go to Yale. Next game, you got Murray State and Kentucky, a 2 seed against a 7 seed, and Murray State takes down number 2 Kentucky. Now moving over to the Midwest, we have Kansas against San Diego State. I believe Kansas is the last remaining 1 seed, and they are gone. Richmond against Providence, a 12 seed versus a 4 seed. This one goes to Providence. Iowa State versus Wisconsin, an 11 seed against a 3 seed here, and it goes to Wisconsin. Miami against Jacksonville State, a 15 seed against a 10 seed, and this one goes to Miami. Moving on to the Sweet 16, you have number 9 Memphis against number 5 UConn, and moving on will be number 5 UConn. Then you got Alabama against Duke, a 6 seed against a 2 seed, and Alabama's moving on. Seton Hall against Chattanooga over there in the South Side, and that one will go to Seton Hall. Then you got Longwood against Ohio State, a 14 against a 7 seed, and it will go to Longwood. Next in the East bracket, you have Marquette against St. Mary's, a 9 seed against a 5 seed, and this one is going to go to Marquette. Next, you have Yale against Murray State, a 14 against a 7 seed, and it will go to Murray State. Now for the Midwest bracket, there is San Diego State against Providence, an 8 seed against a 4 seed, and 8 seed San Diego State is moving on to the Elite 8. Then you got number 3 Wisconsin against number 10 Miami, and Wisconsin's moving on. Now moving on to the Elite 8, the West Side is UConn against Alabama. Let's see who's moving on here. It is going to be Alabama moving on to the Final 4. Now Seton Hall against Longwood, an 8 seed against a 14 seed, and we are sending an 8 seed to the Final 4. Next up is Marquette against Murray State, a 9 seed against a 7 seed, and the 7 seed moves on. Then the final game of the Elite 8 is number 8 San Diego State against number 3 Wisconsin, and this goes to number 3 Wisconsin. So here is your Final 4, a 6 seed Alabama, a 7 seed Murray State, an 8 seed Seton Hall, and a 3 seed Wisconsin. First we will handle Alabama and Murray State. Moving on to the national championship game will be Alabama is the higher seed. Number 8 Seton Hall against number 3 Wisconsin. Who's headed to the national title game? It will be Seton Hall. So the national championship game is Alabama and Seton Hall. Heads, Alabama is the national champion. Tails, Seton Hall is the national champion. And the coin flip is away, and it is Alabama winning the national championship. I will lose my shit if they win a basketball national championship. And I just put in a final score of 70-68, so that is what the coin has decided will be the national champion, the Alabama Crimson Tide.